Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome in to the latest edition of Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. You see our nice tumblers there provided by Don Staley over there at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. They do some great work for our community, that is for sure. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. It's early, but Crimson Tide football certainly looking the part in terms of how this football team looks, Rodney, as you like to say on Tider Insider, on the hoof. When you're just out there, you know, moving quickly, getting first impressions, you can't help but be impressed. I mean, it's a good-looking team. Alabama held its fourth fall camp practice this afternoon. Now, there was no media viewing today. So this is video from Monday's third practice. You saw number 19, tight end Jaleel Billingsley was back at practice. That's good news. We didn't see him during Friday. But, Rodney, again, you were out there on Friday. You were out there yesterday. There's Big Evan Neal. What a man in terms of about 6'7" and 350 pounds, and he's not fat. Just your first impressions from what you've seen so far.
Well, first of all, Gary, we know about the recruiting they've done around here. The evaluations have obviously been, you know, outstanding. They've brought in the players. They're developing the players incredibly. I mean, you look at physically this team on both sides of the ball. I don't think physically I've ever seen a better team at the start of camp. Again, we're talking about on the hoof. We're talking about the way they look physically. We're not talking about how they're going to pan out as a team or predicting a national championship, what have you. But we are saying this is a team that is loaded with athletes, tremendous recruiting, incredible development by David Ballou, Dr. Matt Ray, the nutrition that they're on, that they have. You know, Gary, it's just really, when you look at it, this is a team that's loaded, the roster.
Now, we still are dealing with COVID. We know that. It's not gone, and this Delta variant has a lot of people nervous. But still, as opposed to last year at this time, when they didn't have spring ball at all and really didn't even know for sure if we'd have a season, the players certainly prefer this. They're basically pretty much back to normal, and they say getting back on the field and a chance to defend last year's national championship with a brand new football team feels pretty good and feels pretty normal.
We're all leading. The older guys, the younger guys are listening to us, and they're falling in place. They're doing everything we're telling them to do, and we're building that team that we all want.
Getting out there to do everything full speed and fast, and seeing the different formations and actually getting to run through the calls. The Zoom calls were good too, just like showing us how it is, but being on the field and being able to take the coaching and actually go through it, it was great.
And Rodney, I said something, if Coach Saban heard it, he would correct me. I said defending the national championship. He says you don't defend anything. That championship stands alone. It is over with. This is a brand new team, and that is true. And we know how difficult it is to win back-to-back. Alabama did it in 2011, 2012. They're the only team, I guess, in the last 20-plus years to do it back-to-back. It is hard to do. 1-1 is very difficult. I get that. But doing it 2 years in a row when you are the bullseye for every other team out there, it's going to take some special preparation, some special accomplishments from this team to have that opportunity.
Well, no question about it. But again, Gary, we look at the foundation. It's there. They've got the players, the young players that they're developing. It's a matter of a lot of experience that now you look on the offensive side of the ball, Gary, you're replacing a lot of tremendous players, a lot of experienced players with young players. And I think that that is the key. How quickly can these offensive players come around? Now, the good thing is I look at the defense and I see a defense that maybe we're getting back to where we were 2017, 2016 in that era. Again, I think this is an opportunity for the defense to really help the offense along early. And as we move along in the season, I think the offense is going to continue to develop. And this team by the end of the year is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, they're very talented, that's for sure. Well, it's time now for Coach Talk. This past weekend, past Sunday, Alabama held its annual media day. That was certainly different. Still this year, after we thought we might get some in-person media availability, everything's still on Zoom. But still, it was an opportunity to hear from the coordinators, which you only get to do preseason, then in the playoff. Defensive coordinator Pete Golding and offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien. We'll hear from Coach O'Brien a little bit later. But expectations, as Rodney alluded to, are really high for Alabama's defense. They got 8 starters back. They got Henry To'oTo'o coming in. And Pete Golding is not only aware, but he has a specific number to measure success by on defense.
If you go back and look over the last 5 years, in order to be number one in the country, right, which is the standard here at Alabama, and this is why I took the job, right, it's going to be holding people to 13 points or less. And that's still our goal. I don't care if they're throwing it 70 times or they're running it 70 times. It doesn't matter. We got to find a way, right, to keep them out of the end zone.
And earlier today, Alabama held its fourth practice of fall camp. As we said, we weren't allowed in there. But one of the early standouts is that man, linebacker Henry To'oTo'o. The transfer from Tennessee drew praise from his teammates. Defensive end Will Anderson Jr. says To'oTo'o is a great communicator and knows the defense really well already. According to Christian Harris, To'oTo'o is doing a good job blending into the linebacker locker room. And Rodney, when you've got a guy that comes in from another school but is extremely talented, it is important that he mesh, because there's a lot of other talented players on this defense. But we listened to those guys today. They're just raving about Henry T.
Yeah, it really doesn't surprise me, Gary. Following him in high school, you knew he was that type of person. I thought he was one of the best high school linebackers in the country coming out of Concord de La Salle, California a few years ago. And listen, I thought he was a perfect fit for Alabama. I think he's a guy that's a natural signal caller. He's a very instinctive player. And he's got those leadership qualities that Nick Saban, really looks for. And so, again, I think he's just a natural fit. And the development that he's had under Jeremy Pruitt and Derek Ansley in this kind of defense at Tennessee, I think when you're transferring in, you really couldn't ask for a better scenario.
Well, you got to go play the season. But you know what? People that say the preseason rankings don't matter, that's not necessarily true, because you'd rather be ranked high, because that gives you a better chance to get in that playoff. Alabama is number one, again, receiving 63 of the 65 first-place votes. Oklahoma received the other 2. Alabama's followed by Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia. A&M is 6, followed by Notre Dame. Iowa State, its highest ranking since the USA Today Coaches Poll started in 1991. They're at number 8. North Carolina and Cincinnati round out the top 10. But just a quick thought on that poll, Rod. Again, I mean, yeah, it doesn't guarantee you anything, but it's much easier, obviously, if you play well, to get into the playoff if you're starting out at number 1.
Yeah, I think so. And again, Gary, these preseason polls are really difficult to kind of predict in terms of, what do they tell you about the future? Because, again, Alabama's got a young team. I think that they've got a lot in terms of, maturing to do. So, again, it's number 1. It's great, but it's a long way from being the finish line.
As you saw, 3 SEC teams in the top 6, Alabama, Georgia, and A&M. 6 SEC teams ranked in the top 25. Florida's at 11, LSU 13, Ole Miss at 25. 3 of the top 4 in the college football playoff last season are in the top 4 again, with Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. Miami, by the way, Alabama's opening game opponent, ranked 16th, and that's the highest opening game opponent that Alabama has had, I think, since who would it have been? Been a while, maybe.
Yeah,
USC.
it's a good question, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while since they faced a team ranked that high. It would have been Florida State, a few years ago, when Florida State, I think, was number 3. Thanks for Stu for telling me that in my year. Florida State got beat by Alabama and really never rebounded. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, college football mourns the death of legendary coach Bobby Bowden. We discuss his impact on the Crimson Tide and head coach Nick Saban, and how different will the Alabama offense look with Bill O'Brien as the play caller. Hear what the Tide's new offensive coordinator said on that subject, and we'll give you our takeaways next. And we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. There's the email address, or you can tweet at us. And we actually got a tweet for this week. Use the hashtag TITV, so we'll see it out there on Twitter. We'll be right back with a show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV.
I have my own style of how I run the ball. I like to break tackles and make people miss, and, more than likely it'll be probably, lowering the shoulder or, dropping my pass. I'm not really a big hurdle guy.
Redshirt senior Brian Robinson Jr. from Hillcrest High School is next in line to be Alabama's starting running back. And as you just heard, got a different style than Najee. He doesn't have the hurdle as part of his game, but he is a bruising guy. He'll put that shoulder down. He'll lead a running back group that is just absolutely stacked. Trey Sanders, Kamar Wheaton, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams. I mean, all those guys are very, very talented and very, very ready to compete this year for the Crimson Tide. And you just can't get enough running backs, Rodney. You've said that before. You think you have too many until you don't.
Yeah.
Injury too, guy leaves or something happens, and we can run through them in a hurry.
We saw it a few years ago. Alabama fans said, hey, what are we going to do with all these running backs? You had Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, T.J. Yeldon, Kenyon Drake, all of those guys, and eventually you were down to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's right. And can't get enough of those guys. And welcome back to TITV, sponsored by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Now, earlier we heard from defensive coordinator Pete Golding. Now for the offense and the new offensive coordinator and play caller, Bill O'Brien. The former Houston Texans head coach replaces Steve Sarkisian, who, of course, left to become the head coach at Texas. O'Brien is the 5th different offensive coordinator since 2016, following Lane Kiffin, Brian Daboll, Mike Locksley, and Steve Sarkisian. Now it's O'Brien calling the offense, and he says it'll look a little bit different, but that's because of the players. This is Nick Saban's offense, Alabama's offense, but he does need to find the plays to fit the skills of his players depending on the defense that they're going up against.
You know, when they went from more of a pro style to more of a spread style, and, you know, when Coach Kiffin was here, and then obviously Coach Locksley and Coach Daboll, and obviously last year Coach Sarkisian, it's evolved over time. You know, I think in the end it comes down to who your players are, what can they do best, who your quarterback is, what can he do best, and what's best for the team. So no year is like any other year. So this year will be very different.
Yeah, it will be. Every year is different, Rodney, and I like what he said. He's excited to be here, but he understands, being a veteran coach, that he has come in here and he's adapting more to Alabama than trying to make Alabama adapt to him.
Sure, and again, he hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's Alabama's system, but you're always going to adapt to what your players do the best to be successful. And, you know, right now you've got a lot of young players. I do think, Gary, when you look at this offense, I think the offensive line has a chance to be really good. And again, some of those players, Bryce Young, some of those receivers, very talented. It's just a matter of gaining experience.
All right, some sad news this week. Hall of Fame college football coach Bobby Bowden, Birmingham native, passed away on Sunday at the age of 91. Last month, when Bowden was diagnosed with a terminal illness, he released the statement, quote, "I've always tried to serve God's purpose for my life on and off the field, and I'm prepared for what is to come," unquote. Bowden was a football player for 1 year at the University of Alabama in 1948 under Red Drew. He would later play and become the head coach at Howard College, which is now Samford University. Bowden has 377 wins in his time as a coach at Howard, West Virginia, and Florida State. His Seminoles won 12 ACC championships and 2 national titles. And, Rodney, he's connected to the University of Alabama in a lot of ways. First of all, he played here on the freshman team back in 1948, as I said. He came very close to becoming the head coach following Ray Perkins in 1986 when Bill Curry got the job. And he's just always loved the state of Alabama, loved Woodlawn High School, loved the city of Birmingham. And yes, even though he's the coach at Florida State, he loves the University of Alabama. And Nick Saban talked about what he meant to him, and he meant a lot to a lot of different coaches.
Yeah, he did. And again, Gary, I thought, you know, Bobby Bowden, following his career, the 80s, the 90s, the way he turned that program around, which you remember Florida State was a doormat.
Miserable, yeah.
Yeah, doormat. He went on the road and would play top 10 teams on the road, and that's how he really established that as a program. Did a tremendous job of recruiting, Gary. One of the classiest guys in terms of, you know, in coaching.
Yeah.
So, again, a legend.
You'll remember the year. You're better with years than I am. But I think the breakthrough win was when he went to Nebraska, went to Lincoln, and beat Tom Osborne and the Cornhuskers. Well, maybe 81 or 82, somewhere in there.
Probably in the early 80s, 82, 83, somewhere in there. But they certainly, they went on the road. I mean, they played Ohio State on the road. They weren't afraid to go anywhere, and they won a lot of those games. And I think that success on the road was something that really kick-started their program.
Yeah, indeed, and he will be missed. But he lived a great life, a full life, and impacted a lot of people. And the thing I said on the sports the other night on my radio show, too, is as great as he was as a coach, more people wanted to talk about him as a man. That speaks to his character. Coming up on Tider Insider TV, the Pittsburgh Steelers put highly touted rookie running back Najee Harris on display. Highlights of his preseason debut. That's coming up. And next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. The phone number, again, 205-348-9882. Give us a call now. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, and we'll do that next right here on TITV. The NFL is back last Thursday night. Preseason football kicked off with the annual Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. What a game. Dallas and Cowboys and the Steelers. Think about the 70 Super Bowls, don't you? Rookie Najee Harris, first NFL carry, gets a first down. You expect to see a lot of that this season from him. And then, watch this, the little middle screen. Not a lot of yards, but he's going to be so effective as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And then finally, you're going to watch him get the edge here for another first down. He'll get grabbed by the face mask on this upcoming carry, but they did not call it. Still, though, he had 7 carries for 22 yards as the Steelers won the game 16-3. Mike Tomlin was very pleased with Najee's debut. And welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It's time to head out to the phone lines. And first up tonight is Sammy up there in Walker County. And Sammy, I want to tell you, Jen, our director, just told me to tell you that she loved the tomato that you brought. You brought us some awesome tomatoes, and everybody loved them again, buddy.
Hello, Gary and Rodney. Yeah, I just hope you and your family enjoyed those.
Yeah, we really did. They were great.
I kind of had a feeling you did.
Yep.
Yeah, guys, I'm all up about the defense this year with returning players. But that said, Rodney and Gary, do you think Kool-Aid will get a chance in that secondary to make some plays and get a little playing time? Thanks, guys.
All right, Sammy, thank you for those tomatoes again. People at the station loved them. My family loved them. They were really, really good. I would think, I know they got a lot of talented players back there in the secondary, but my impression is that he's just too talented to be kept off the field. I think he'll play some, whether it's starting out on special teams or in a different package, but I think he'll see the field.
Yeah,
don't you?
I think he certainly has an opportunity. I mean, he's Jalen Armour-Davis at that other corner opposite of Josh Jobe. I think Kool-Aid's really competing hard there, so I think he's got an opportunity, Sammy. Again, he's going to have to win it, but he's a very talented young kid. Don't be surprised. Don't be totally surprised if he gets an opportunity to return punts. Very, very elusive with the ball in his hand, so it'll be interesting to see.
Sammy, thank you for that phone call. I told you we had a tweet from our pal Goal Line Stan out on Twitter. Do you expect Bryce Young to throw deep against Miami or short throws? What will the run-pass ratio be? That's a lot there, Goal Line. Let me say this. Based on what I've seen from Bill O'Brien, they're going to use the tight ends. They're going to have a lot of people in the pattern. I know this sounds trite, Rodney, but I think they're going to try to take what's there. And if they can start out with some short throws, some confidence throws, run the ball well, and then Miami starts sneaking up to that line of scrimmage, then you may see them take some shots over the top. In fact, I think you will. But I think the goal will be balanced and to mix it up and keep the defense, off edge.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't think they're going to be reserved in terms of allowing Bryce Young to throw the ball all over the field. I mean, again, I agree with you. I think it's going to be balanced, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be limited in terms of short throws. Listen, I think they're going to utilize his skills. He's got a lot of ability, very strong arm, talented passer. And these receivers, there's John Mechie's back, Slade Bowden's back. They've got a lot of young, talented guys. I mean, obviously they brought in Jamison Williams. He's a vertical threat, Gary. I mean, 10-4, 900 meters. So, yeah, I think they're going to utilize all the field.
All right. Thanks for that tweet, Goal Line Stan. Still to come on TITV, Alabama football continues the tradition of bringing in impressive guest speakers. Man, it's just who's who. Find out the most recent celebrity that came in to speak to the football team. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. In fact, phone lines are open right now at 205-348-9882. So you can get through if you call right now, 205-348-9882. We'll be right back with more TITV after this. Welcome back to TITV. I'm Gary Harris with Rodney Orr, and let's get back out on the phone lines. Let's go over to East Alabama, Cherokee County Center, where Charles is with us, center, the home of Martin Houston. National Championship fullback Chad Gladden from Cherokee County played at Alabama. Good program over there. Hey, good evening, Charles. How are you?
Hey, good evening, and roll tide. I wanted to ask you about the running back situation. With that much talent, I figured one, maybe even two, could be redshirt. Who do you think it might be is going to be redshirt? Thank you.
Rodney, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, again, listen, it's always difficult to predict.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to get through the season first with all of them healthy because you never know who you're going to utilize. And they're all impressive. I mean, I think it's going to be more by committee this year. I really do. Look, I think Brian's going to get his opportunities.
But they're going to spread those carries
Chase
around.
McClellan,
Yeah.
you've got Roydell Williams, Trey Sanders is healthy or getting there.
Kamar Wheaton, of course.
Kamar Wheaton, the young true freshman. If you press me and you ask me a guy that might be redshirted, perhaps, maybe Kamar Wheaton, and I'm not predicting that. Let me be clear. You ask who I would predict, that would be a possibility, but again, I don't know that.
All right, thanks for that phone call from over there in Cherokee County. All right, let's get to an email ride. This is from Dennis. With the expansion, do you think that the SEC will divide into 14 pods instead of East and West divisions? Dennis, it's a great question. I don't know is the answer. I like the pod system. I would like to see pods. I think 16 teams. I'm not a big fan of divisions. I'd also like to see a ninth conference game and think it. And in fact, in my opinion, Rodney, I think it is inevitable that you're going to have to go to 9 conference games with 16 teams. But we will find out. I'm sure that's something the SEC is taking a look at.
I do like the pods. Did you say you did?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Much more than divisions.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how those pods would be put together. You know, which teams are in the pods. So.
Yeah, 4 14 pods sounds good to me.
Yeah, it does.
And I've seen a model with Alabama, Auburn, Vandy, and Tennessee.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd take that.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that email. One more email to get to, Rodney, and it's from Tony in Tuscaloosa. Good question. What's the status of wide receiver Xavier Williams?
Well, listen, until Nick Saban officially announces, and I don't think he's even commented on it, Gary, to this point, Xavier Williams is not on the roster. There's been some talk that maybe he's recovering from an injury. But again, all we really know right now is that Xavier Williams isn't on the roster, and until Nick Saban addresses it, there's nothing official.
All right, thanks for the phone calls, the emails, and the tweets. We'll come back and wrap up this edition of Tider Insider TV right after this. MLB great and current TV analyst Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, spoke to the Alabama football team on Friday. Alabama's been known to bring in big-time speakers. They brought in Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, Stephen A. Smith, Jay Billis, Mike Tyson. It goes on and on. Michael Jordan spoke to him on Zoom last year. But A-Rod's an interesting choice since Alabama is less than 4 weeks from the season opener against Rodriguez's boyhood hometown team, a team he signed with out of high school. He played baseball and football. He didn't play at Miami. He went on with the Seattle Mariners organization, but he spoke to Alabama, said he just loves the way Nick Saban runs his program. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of TITV. A reminder, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime at WVOA23.com. We've been brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. We're going to leave you tonight with the renaming Avenue celebration for Nick's kids that was held last week. Have a great night, everybody. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We'll talk to you again next week. Roll Tide.